First of all, yeah, my name is Mohammed Kubaib. I'm a Microsoft MEP and former Citrix CTP. Those who doesn't know about MEP and Citrix CTP, these are the technological recognition award from the Microsoft and Citrix for the community contribution related to the relevant technologies. So I'm a Udemy instructor as well, so you can find my Udemy courses about Windows 365, Azure Virtual Desktop, Citrix, all
Whoever,
those.
have you shared your screen by any chance? I'm sorry, we are not able to see.
Okay, then can you see now?
No, it is loading. Yep, got it. Thanks.
Yeah, yeah. So as I was explaining, this is my Udemy profile. So where you can find all the courses related to VDI, FSLogix, and cloud. So today's topic, especially on profile solution for VDI. So this is gonna be a 2 hour session, hopefully. And first 1 hour or first half an hour, we'll talk about the theory part of it. And remaining 1 hour or 1 hour 30 minutes, we'll spend on the lab. So if you have any questions, keep it with you and put it in the chat. We'll discuss at the last. This is because if we start discussing in the middle, we may not able to complete the complete session. So that's why we'll keep it for the end of the session. And also you can put it in the chat. So I have also a video YouTube channel named as VDA Bus. You can join that where I'll post all the videos related to VDA technologies. And also I have a WhatsApp page as well. You can subscribe it if you wanted to, stay updated on the latest VDA technologies. I'll paste the link later. So yeah, let's start. So I'm just going to make it full screen. So today's topic, especially about FSLogix profile solution for VDA. So what is profile storage in VDA? So profile storage in a virtual desktop infrastructure, it is a centralized location where users' Windows profile data is stored instead of keeping it locally on a single virtual machine. So typically a profile, Windows profile, it contains a desktop files, documents, downloads, app settings such as Outlook, Teams, or browser, etc., and registry related information and application data. So these are all included in a profile. So instead of we keep the profile in a particular VM or VDI, we are going to keep it in the centralized location. So we will discuss why we are keeping in a centralized location. I hope most of the attendees here all are from VDA background, and you already know what is profile storage and how it works. But still, if somebody is very new to this, I would like to cover this from the scratch so that you'll not have any doubts on your mind. So I'll go and open the whiteboard. So when the user logs in to any Windows PC, for example, this is a Windows PC. So basically, for each user, it will create a profile. So for example, let's say first user A is logging. The Windows operating system, it will create a profile for the user in this particular computer under C drive, C users. For example, user A. So this profile, it will contain, as I mentioned, the data related to desktop documents and registries, app data, and application settings, etc., etc. So combinedly, we call it as a profile solution. So when it comes to VDI, why profile solution is so important? If you are working on a standalone computer or if you are working on a dedicated virtual desktop, then this doesn't matter. Why? Because this particular computer or VDI, dedicated VDI, is only for you. So everything is stored in the C drive. So you don't need to worry about the profiling solution. But when it comes to non-persistent or pooled VDI, then profile solution is very important. We will see why it is very important in the next slide. So the first reason is persistency in non-persistent desktop. So as you all know, what is pooled and non-persistent VDA, right? So pooled VDA means like you'll have hundreds of VDAs, and each time when the user logs in, he may get any VDA out of that pool. And whatever the data he saved, next time it may not be available. Why? Because when you log in for the next time, you may get another VDA. So this is called pooled nature. And what is non-persistency? Non-persistency means whatever the data you save after the log off or after the restart, it will flush like your MCS VDA. However, I wanted to give a difference here. In Azure VDA, there is nothing like non-persistency. Okay, it's just a pool. So let's say if you are logging into the VDA, Azure VDA, pooled one, and if you save some data after logging off, and if you re-log in, if you are lucky enough to get the same VDA, then you will have your data. But there are chances are very less so that you will get the same VDA because it's a pooled VDA, right? So you will not get your data. So, however, in Citrix MCS, it is not like that. Even though if you get the same VDA in MCS pool, still you will not get your data. Why? Because after the log off, it will flush everything. So that is the behavior of MCS provisioned VDAs, which is called as non-persistency. However, in AVD, there is no such concept. It is just a pooled VDA. Whatever the data you save, it will be still there on the VM disk. However, you will not get it. Why? Because next time you may connect it to some other VDA. So this is the main difference when it comes to VDA type in Azure and Citrix. So many people are not aware this behavior. So this is how it works. So FSLogix profile solution is very important when you work with non-persistence VDA or in a pooled VDA. Why? Because each time your VDA will change. Each time, it will take you to the new VDA, and you may not get your data or you may not get your application settings. So in order to keep the persistency of your data, of your settings, profile solution is required. So that is the first very important reason. Second, consistent user experience. So if you have a profile solution, each time you log into any VM in that pool or any VDA in that pool, you will get the same application settings. You will get the same data which you saved in the previous sessions. So it will be very smooth and consistent. So in order to give that consistency, you need a profile solution. So without profile solution, it is not possible in a pooled infrastructure. And third one, which I may not agree all the time, which is faster logins. So especially when it comes to FSLogix, sometimes it will help you to get faster logins when it is properly designed. I'll explain why faster logins when compared with our traditional UPM solution in the later section. Then scalability. So this is also like if you are working on Azure and if you have some auto scaling, all those things. Let's say if you have 100 VDAs and then you're adding another 100 or 200 or 300 based on the business requirement, then you don't need to worry about the user data, user application setting, etc. Because irrespective of any number of video add, user will not have any impact on his data or application because everything is stored in the centralized location, right? So irrespective of any scalability happening in the background, so your profile will be intact. So this is one of the reason. So these are the reasons why we need profile solution in a VDA infrastructure. So let's see what happened without profile solution. So let's say if you do not have profile solution, what are the issues you may face? So the first one, which is every login is equal to fresh Windows profile. So consider you are a user, you're working on a bank or healthcare, and you have a VDA. So let's say on day one you joined the company and you logged in and you did all your profile settings, let's say favorites or some other settings related to browser, all those things, Outlook settings, team settings, etc. And you save some data on the desktop. So next day you're coming and logging in, you're seeing there is nothing, it is a fresh profile. Then just the feeling of getting a VDI without data, right? So this will be the issue if you use pooled VDI without profile solution. And then apps reconfigure each time. As I told you, let's say Outlook. So every day you have to reconfigure it. That will be frustrating for the user. Then there is no saved data, poor user experience, and which will end up in higher support tickets. So these are the high level reasons why you need profile solution. Hope you guys are following. Just give me a thumbs up so that I will make sure that you are listening. Okay, fair enough. So now let's jump into the profile solution offered by Microsoft itself. So as you know, it started with the traditional roaming profile in early 2000. I'm not sure. At that time I was studying. Uh, then later Citrix brought its own profile solution called Citrix UPM solution. So we were all using that for our Citrix video solution. Then Microsoft in late 2000, I think 2016 or 18, Microsoft acquired a company called FSLogix. So I was fortunate enough to try this in production back in 2017, I believe. So that like I used this product before Microsoft has acquired. So it is a Netherlands based company, I believe, if I'm not wrong. So then later Microsoft acquired, and they made it as part of their product portfolio. So FSLogix, it is a Microsoft profile management solution designed primarily for VDA environment. So this is not only for VDA, even you can use it for physical PC also, but it does not make sense unless and until you have some use cases. So instead of copying user profile at log on and log off, FSLogix mount the entire user profile as a virtual disk, which is VHD or VHDX. So this is the game-changing statement. Guys, listen. It will mount the entire user profile instead of copying the user profile at log on and log off. So this is what makes the big difference between our traditional UPM solution and FSLogix. So in order to understand, let's go back and let's see how the traditional UPM solution used to work. So consider you have a Citrix VDI. These are all your pooled VDA, and this is your profile share, file share, right? And this is the user. So when the user log in for the first time on your VDI, it will create a profile on the shared drive because you have a GPO attached to these computers saying that any profile creation, any profile should be created in the share, and it has to be pointed to this particular file share. So for the first time when the user logs in, and it will create a let's say for the user one, it will create a profile over here, and whatever the changes user does right here, for example saving the data or doing application setting, etc., eventually it will write here. So, okay, so it will write at the log off, and now there is a setting you can write in between as well. So let's say he is logging off, and the next day he is again logging in. So that time it may connect to this particular computer or VDA. So the moment it connected to this computer or VDA, again the GPU, it will redirect, it will says you go to the storage and load the profile. So it will go here and it will read this user profile, and everything will be redirected to the user VDA, kind of copying all the users profile settings, everything back to your VDA. Okay, so each time, let's say there is a back and forth traffic between your VDA and between the storage. So let's say if the network are having any latency, then user may feel the difference because it will start behaving very slow, or you'll have issues, etc., etc. And moreover, because it is redirecting, everything from your VDA to the user profile each time. Because of this, because of the latency, etc., there are the chances the profile may corrupt sometime. So probability is more when you use this particular solution, right? So how FSLogix will help, in to overcome all those challenges. Let's say the latency, very important, and then corruption, all those things, right? So consider you are running a VM, right? Virtual machine. So in this virtual machine, you have RAM, you have CPU, right? And then very important thing, the storage for your C drive or operating system drive. So this is not local to your virtual machine, correct? Because storage will sit somewhere in the SAN, your EMC or whatever it is, right? So this may be in your VMware, your RAM, computer, CPU, all those which is sitting in a server. The server, on top of it, you'll have a VMware hypervisor. So here you will, it will consume RAM and CPU from this server, let's say a chassis. But storage for your operating system, it will not consume from your server unless and until it is a hyperconverged like Nutanix or VXL, all those things. Okay, so let's not get into that. In order to understand, just think about this scenario. So for the storage, it will consume from the SAN. So a chunk of storage will be get mounted to your VM. So all your operating system, everything will be from this storage. Okay. However, the storage is external to this user. So the moment you turn on this compute or VM, storage will get attached and operating system will be, loaded from this storage. So think about the same scenario for FSLogix. The moment user logs in to your VDA, think this is a VDA. Then instead of going to the network location and loading the profile, copying the things, what it will do, you have a storage right here. For example, let's say you have a share here, and under this share, when the user logs in for the first time, it will create a profile. So this time profile is not a file based, it is a block based, either VHD or VHDX. So this particular block, right, it will directly attach to your VDA, same like how the operating system attaching, right? So the similar method, it will attach. Now the VDA thinks that this particular stuff or this particular piece which is local to your VDA. So now think about this scenario. This is your VDA, and here you have your C drive to load your operating system. Then you will have your profile VHD. So now user is saving some data on the desktop or changing everything. So the VDA, it will think it is local to the VM itself. So it will not travel, to copy everything each time like the traditional UPM solution. Okay, so it will behave as a local disk and it will write everything instantly to the VHD, and it will not wait till the log off or during the log on, etc. So this is the key difference between UPM solution as well as this is the key difference between our Citrix UPM or roaming profile versus FSLogix. Correct. So in order to explain this in a layman term, for example, let's say you have a shop, right? And you have a water bottle. You need to, let's say the shop requires water bottle, correct? So in order to sell it to the customer, right? So let's say you need, you know, 4 water bottles. Let's say this is a vendor. So in a traditional Citrix UPM, what will happen? The vendor or the he will supply water bottle based on, let's say first he will take 1 bottle and it will keep it here. So when the shopkeeper sells this one, and now you do not have any water bottles, right? Now again the vendor, he will go and he will keep it one more, and when the second one is no more, then he will supply the third one, and then finally he will supply the fourth one. So each time the vendor has to go back and forth to get the water bottle and deliver it to the shopkeeper, right? So this is how Citrix UPM works. So if you think about FSLogix, so what will happen? Like, let's say the vendor, he will put all the four bottles in a single box and he will deliver it to the shopkeeper at a time, right? So let's say the shopkeeper, once, so this is how shopkeeper will handle the bottle. So he no need to do the request to the vendor that I do not have anything one let's say left, so that you need to get the another one. Why? Because now he is having the entire box. Unless and until the box is empty, then only the shopkeeper has to make the call. Otherwise, it is not required. So this is how FSLogix works. Consider this is a VHT which you are getting mounted to the VM. So now all the changes will be done over here itself. So when the user is logging off, then this VHD will get unmounted or detached from the VM, and it is released back to the storage. Okay, clear? So this is the architecture of FSLogix, how it works compared to just traditional UPM. So this is very important to understand. So now see what are the components of FSLogix. So first one is profile container. So each user gets their own VHD or VHDX file. Okay. So which is stored in the storage, SMB storage, and it will have the complete profile for including your app data as well. As you remember, in the traditional UPM solution, app data basically will not redirect. You need to do the configuration, etc. But here in FSLogix, the entire profile, so it will get redirected to, sorry, it will, entire profile will get copied to your VHT, FSLogix profile, you can say. Yeah, there are mechanism. If you wanted to exclude, still you can do it. Let's imagine you don't want to add any cache to your profile, then you can do some redirection or exclusions that we will talk about later. Okay. Then the second core components, you need to have a SMB file share. Okay. So if you are working on a cloud technology, let's say Azure VDA or Citrix on Azure, etc., then the commonly recommended files share solution is Azure Files. So that is a very good solution where you can host your profile. Then you have Azure NetApp file, and these are all PaaS services, ready-made solutions. Let's say if you wanted to create your own file server Windows, file server cluster, then you can also use that. However, that is not recommended. So, and when it comes to storage, very important consideration, you should have a low latency. So you should have less than 5 to 6 millisecond latency between your virtual machine and between and your storage. So you cannot have more than that. If you have more than that, then you may face issues. Yeah. High IOPS. So IOPS is required, and concurrent access handling. So these are the storage features. You need to make sure that it supports these capabilities to host the FSLogix profile. So we'll talk about latency, IOPS, all those things. Okay. So then filter driver. So this is the magic layer. So what is filter driver? Filter driver is nothing but it is a small portion of FSLogix setup that exactly help you to redirect your profile to the storage, right? This is the magic piece where it will create your profile in the network shell. So filter driver is responsible, at the login, it will, create, or it will mount the VHDX, and it will redirect whatever your profile, for example, see user's username, right? All the contents of this to the VHDX, and it will make the VM feel like the mounted VHD, it is a local VHD. Okay. So these are all the things it will be taken care by your filter driver. Then there is no file copy. So as I told you, in Citrix UPM, you have back and forth file copy things, right? There is no such things here in FSLogix. No roaming sync. So there is no synchronization during the log off, etc. It is just a disk mount. So during login, it will attach, and during log off, it will detach. So only two actions. Then we have something called office container. So this is again optional. Let's say if you wanted to save all the settings, caches, or all the things separately to the different disk, instead of keeping it in a same profile disk, then you can configure office container. So this is again depends on the infrastructure. You can plan either you can put everything on a profile container, or let's say if you don't want to put everything in profile container, let's say you wanted to keep the office related things separately, then you can configure office container. So these are the high level components of FSLogix. Okay. So as I already explained how it works, so traditional UPM or profile solution copies profile from file server local to the local VM at login. Okay, and it copies back at logout. So which I already explained. Problem with the profile, the traditional one is slow login and logouts. Let's say if you have a network latency on your infrastructure, then definitely user profile VDA login will take time because it requires all the things to copy to your VM, right? So, and also it will lead to profile corruption, huge app data issue, and Outlook OST not supported properly. And we all went through this scenario, right? So how FSLogix works? So user authenticate to the session host. FSLogix will check the profile share, VHD is mounted, and then profile is instantly available. So user logs on normally. So logout, during the logout, VHD will get dismounted. So any changes, it will return to the disk directly. So no robocopy, no profile sync, nothing. So it is just a attach and detach concept over here. Simple summary, traditional profiles is equal to copy files back and forth. FSLogix mount the entire profile as a disk. So it is a copy versus mount. That's the core difference. I hope you got it now. So this is the fundamental things about FSLogix when it compared to your traditional UPM solution. So let's see the licensing requirement. I'm just checking the time. Okay, we are in. So let's see the licensing difference between, licensing requirement for FSLogix. So you don't need to buy any separate license for FSLogix. So if you have the below Microsoft license, then you are eligible to use this product. For example, let's say if you have Microsoft 365 E3, E5, A3, A5, F1, F3, or business, or if you have Windows 10, E3, E5, A3, A5, or if you have Windows VDA per user, or IDS CAL license, or Azure VDA per user license. So if you are having these, then you are eligible to use FSLogix. Although Microsoft will not, do any, software, licensing checks while installing FSLogix. Anybody can install it. However, it's all about compliance, right? So how your enterprise is meeting the Microsoft compliance with respect to the license. So it's all about that. So even if you do not have this license, still you are allowed to use, but legally it's not right, or you're not meeting the compliance. So if Microsoft does any auditing, then you will be in trouble. So before use for lab purpose, you can use it. That is a different story to try out the things. But in a production infrastructure, make sure you have these things. Then only go and deploy FSLogix. So I'm not going to bore you with the theory things. So let's jump quickly. So if you have any doubts, just put it in the chat, because I cannot explain one by one now because we need to cover the lab. Okay. So I'll stop the presentation for now. So let's go and deploy the FSLogix profile solution in real using our Azure Virtual Desktop infrastructure. So before I jump into the lab, I will explain what are the things available in my lab. Okay, so as a prerequisites for FSLogix, right, you need to have a profile share. So for the profile share, I'm going to use Azure Premium file. Okay, and then we will have a Azure Desktop Host Pool, which is having a virtual machine or VDI, and then we'll create a group policy. So see, deployment, like pushing the policy with respect to your FSLogix can be done using multiple ways. Either you can use GPO, or you can use Intune, or you can use registry-based settings as well. Or if you have something third-party solution like Nerdy and all, I think you can do it here also. And also you can do it on the base image as well. Okay. So there are many options are available. My favorite one is either GPO or Intune. So yours may be vary. So it depends on your infrastructure. Okay. So I have covered all the scenario in my YouTube channel, and also it's there on my Udemy as well. So how to do it using different methods. So for simplicity and the most recommended one, I'll always go with the GPU unless and until you have a plan to move everything to the cloud in the later stage. You can also use Intune. So in my lab, I have a domain controller because Active Directory connectivity is very important because we are talking about SMB file share. So SMB file share, it is nothing but you need to have Active Directory connectivity in order to define the NTFS permissions, everything, right? So first, what we will do, we will create a file share. Once our file share is ready, then we will define permissions. Okay. So for the Azure file share, you need to define permission in two places. One in Azure RBAC. In the Azure itself, you have to define, and then you need to define on the file share itself. It is called NTFS. We all know, right? So NTFS permission. These two things we need to do. So when it comes to Azure, the permissions required is SMB elevated contributor. This is for the administrator, elevated contributor. And for the normal users, you need SMB data contributor. Okay. File share data contributor, something like that. We will cover it. So when it comes to NTFS, we need to have two permission. One is domain user. Okay. So I think we need to give some modify permission to these files, and then you need to have some creator owner permission for the files and subfolders, etc. So we will check in Microsoft article what exactly required, and we will configure accordingly. Okay. Yeah, here it is. So creator owner, you need to provide modify on subfolder and files, and for the domain users, modify on this folder only. So this is my Azure infrastructure. So as you can see, I have my domain controller. So you need to have a domain controller, and then I have a host pool, as you can see here. In order to save time, I created these things. If you see, this is the host pool. Okay, so I have a virtual machine. As of now, there is nothing configured in this. So let's do the FSLogix installation and file share configuration, all those things to require to set up the profile solution. Yeah. As I mentioned, I will cover the see guys, this is just a training, so it is very hard to discuss about the issues related to your infrastructure because I don't know about your infrastructure, right? So each infrastructure may vary. So if you have any general questions, please post it. I strongly recommend not to post anything related to specific to the issues which you encounter on your infrastructure, because it may we may not be able to cover, because if we keep on discussing the issues related to the infrastructure, right? Each infrastructure is different. So if you have a general doubts or recommendations, all those things you can post it. Yeah, coming into the lab setup, before I go about the before I talk about the lab setup, one important thing considerations when it comes to storage: AV exclusion, antivirus exclusion. So you need to make sure that you follow the Microsoft article and exclude what are the recommendations they have mentioned in their article. So you need to work with your antivirus vendor, either it is Defender or any third party. So you need to exclude this in order to avoid any issues. Okay. So this is the one important thing. Uh, second thing, you need to take care about the latency, or as I told you, you should not have more than 5 millisecond latency between your VM and storage. Okay, these are the two major consideration you have to take care. So the rest of the things we can discuss later. Okay, so as I mentioned, let's go and deploy our Azure file share. This is the first part for us. Okay, so in order to deploy, we need to go to our storage account. As you can see here, we have a storage account, right? So under this, click on create. Okay. So here, I think most of them already aware of the basic Azure thing. So I'm not going to discuss, each and everything like subscription, resource group, all those things. If you wanted to learn, I have a playlist in my YouTube, or also you can refer it to the Udemy. There I covered everything from the scratch. So I have something called a resource group, which is demo lab. So I will keep all the storage accounts related to this demo under demo lab. So storage account name, I'm going to define it as demo storage FSL. Okay. So this should be a unique name, because if I give some generic name, somebody might have already taken. So see, so you need to give the unique name. So region, this is very important. So if you are deploying your VDI solution in India, do not choose the region as Central US for your storage account. Okay, always it has to be on the same region. Otherwise, you will not meet the latency part I told you. It may create more than 5 millisecond latency, and you will end up in issues. So always make sure you deploy your storage account on the same region as your virtual machine or VDA. Yeah. So for now, I'm going to keep it, I'll deploy it in Central US. So preferred storage type, right? So here we need to select Azure file. This is the one, it will provide us the SMB storage. So when it comes to performance, we have standard and premium. Okay. So standard, basically the disk type, right? In the backend, it will use hard disk HDD file. Okay. But for a Azure VDA, which is not recommended, always you need to go with the premium. Why? Because premium will have a SSDs, right? As it is mentioned, SSD. So why SSD is important? Because it will have high IOPS capability, and it will, IOPS means it will read and write the data to the disk very fast as compared to our STD. Okay. So under file share billing, we have two models. One is provision V1 and another one is provision V2. Okay. So provision VM. So this will provide the capacity, throughput, IOPS accordingly. So you will not have a choice to define what are the throughput or IOPS you need. Okay. So Microsoft, it will decide and it will give it to you. However, let's say if you do not want, you wanted to decide yourself that how many, like how much throughput I need, how much IOPS I need, then you can go with V2. Okay. So as a best practice, I will go with the V1. So again, it's my choice. It's not a baseline for the deployment. So if you are sure about your throughput or IOPS, how you are defined, then you can go with the V2. Okay, otherwise leave it with the V1. So redundancy, this is very 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 important. Okay, so you have two options here when you choose a file share, right? One is LRS and another is ZRS. So let's go back to our whiteboard to understand what is LRS and what is ZRS, right? So when you choose a Azure region, for example, let's say Central India, right? Or let's say, I don't know what else we have it. Let's say South India region, okay? And you plan to deploy your VDA over here. So basically, in a region, right? In a region, you'll have 3 data center, which is called as availability zones: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Similarly, in all the region, Microsoft will have different data center within the region: zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Okay. So when you say I need a file share with LRS, locally redundant storage, then all your profiles, it will be limited to this particular zone or data centers. Everything will be here. Okay. So let's say if this goes, is this zone goes down, then you'll not have any profile. So you'll end up in issues, right? So this is called LRS, locally redundant. So it means that within the one particular zone, it will have 3 copies, by the way. Okay. These 3 copies will be spread across maybe 3 racks, etc. I'm not going in detail on that. So you can check out my Udemy or YouTube again to get to understand the zones properly. On a high level, these are all independent data center within the region. So this is LRS. So when you deploy file share with LRS, your file share only available in one particular data center. If that data center goes down, halas, you will not have any data. So you'll have issues, right? That's where something called ZRS came into the picture. So ZRS means when you deploy a file share, for example, let's say you create a file share, then the file share is available on all the 3 data centers. The copy is available in all the 3 data centers. For example, one data center goes down, then Microsoft will make this available instantly. You no need to do anything in the backend, correct? So this is how it will handle the high availability for your file share. So always I recommend when you deploy your virtual machine or VDA solution, make it zone redundant, ZRS. Okay, your VM as well as your storage. Okay, make it zone aware. So deploy VMs or VDAs across zones instead of pinning into single zone. And also when creating a file share, also make it ZRS, so that you no need to worry if something happens on that particular data center. Otherwise, if you don't want to use this, if you wanted to stick on to single data center within the Microsoft, then you need to use something called cloud cache that we'll talk about later, maybe if time permits. Okay. So this is a another solution for the redundancy, but I hate this, but we'll keep it to the last. Okay, why? Because here it requires a lot of manual efforts. Why you wanted to do all those things when you Microsoft is offering a ready-made solution with the ZRS? Okay, so always keep this in mind when you are designing your file share. So since this is a lab, I will select LRS, but in production my recommendation is to go with the ZRS. Okay, zone option, again, let's say if you are selecting LRS, you have options here, like in which zone you wanted to keep your file share. Okay, so let's say if you select ZRS, it will not ask because your data or your file share is available on all 3 data center. But if you are using LRS, then it will ask. So if you say none, then no zones are selected. Second option is self-selected zone. So Microsoft will automatically choose a zone for you. Sorry, self-selected means you can choose either you wanted to keep it in zone 1 or zone 3, etc. let's say let Microsoft choose the zone for you, then you can select this particular option. Okay, so when you choose this no zone option selected, eventually it is going to put it in some zone, but this is called a regional deployment. So I will not get into this, because you will not have any visibility on this which zone Microsoft is selected. Okay, so this option and the last option, it is kind of same. Okay, this is the new option. Earlier this was not there, so Microsoft used to select automatically. Now let's say why this is very important, the self selected zone. For example, let's say if your VDI are in zone 1, then it is always recommended you keep your LRS storage on the zone 1 itself to avoid latency. So it does not make sense, right? Your VM is in zone 1 and storage is in zone 3, so it will create a latency. So in order to avoid, Microsoft has released this feature where customer can select the zone required for them when they choose LRS. Okay. For now, I'll choose let Microsoft or Azure decide the zone for me. So let's click next. So these are all security related settings over here. I'm not going to touch anything. So if you wanted to know more about this, again, I'll refer to my YouTube where I have mentioned what are the settings you need to enable or disable with in order to protect or in order to secure your storage account. Okay, so click next. This is again public access, or you can define private endpoints. So these are all additional configurations. Again, I covered separately, so you can check out. So for now, I'll keep it public access enable. For production, do not use this option. You need to use private endpoints, etc. So it's a huge topic again. I'm not going to discuss at this moment now. So network routing, I'll keep it for now Microsoft network routing. So you also keep it for Microsoft network routing. So do not go to change anything over here. Let's click next. Data protection. So this is this will talk about recovery, soft delete, etc. For example, let's say somebody deleted your file share, so it will be there for 7 days by default. Okay, so if you don't want that setting, you can remove it. So all those things you can do it over here, and you can do it later also once you create. So this is encryption. So by default, it will use Microsoft managed key to encrypt the data. If you have your own key, then you can use customer managed key. So again, I have discussed separately in my videos. So it's a huge topic. I don't want to waste time on explaining all those things. So let's click next. So this is again tags. So if you wanted to add any tags, you can define it over here. So finally, click next. So this will validate your storage account, and it will create the storage account on Central US with the premium file share and with LRS. So you need to validate everything over here, and then you can hit on create. Okay. So this is the procedure to create Azure file share, Azure premium file share storage accounts. Okay. So this is the just a procedure to create storage account. We did not create the file share yet. So file share will come into the picture once we complete this particular process. So let's wait till it gets completed. So meantime, I will go to the chat and I'll see if we have any questions. I'll address it. Okay, Rajendra has asked, it's okay. We do face issue when user log into the pool morning report, they don't see desktop account, blank screen, etc. Again, this is specifically for the environment related issues. It is very hard to decide or judge what may be the cause for this. So I cannot help it on this. Second one, what is FSLogix redirection.xml? So what is the best practice for it? Yeah, FSLogix redirection.xml. Let's say if you wanted to exclude some of the files and folders, right? For example, Teams cache. You don't want them to, copy to your profile storage, right? Or you wanted to exclude it. So such things you can do it using FSLogix redirection.xml. So best practice, see, there is nothing like best practice. There are some articles where people are excluding the some folders and path from cache related things, like let's say Chrome cache, Edge cache, Teams cache, OneDrive cache, all those things you can do it. But again, this depends on your infrastructure. Like what are the things you wanted to exclude, because some company may need some cache related things, right, in order to load the things faster. So they will keep it, but some company they don't want. So it's about infrastructure, each infrastructure how it is managed. Okay, so I have written an article on my uh, related to FSLogix redirection.xml. You can check out that. So how to configure all those things I have already cleared. It's also there in my YouTube channel as well. How to use the redirection XML. Okay, if the user session is still open in backend, then this type. Okay, there is the answer for that. Yeah, the 5-second latency concept is also refers to on-prem infrastructure. That is true. See, idea is you need your storage should be close to your VDI. Okay, so the more the distance is more between your storage and VM, then definitely you'll have a latency, and ultimately it will have a problem. So the good part in Azure is you have everything in the particular region and zone, right? But in on-premise, we don't know like how far it is, the storage is from your VDA, etc. Okay. Okay, our storage account is got created, so you can directly click on go to resource, or you can select Azure storage over here, and you can click on Azure files. So go to resource. So here we have our storage account. So if you go inside storage account, so you have something called file share, right? So so here we need to create a file share. Okay, this is the actual file share we are going to create. So let's say I'm going to define as user profile, user file share, correct? User profile share. Okay, this is the size. Okay, so the minimum size in Azure Premium file you can set 32 GB. Sorry, 100. Let's say if I'm keeping 99, it will give an error. See, minimum you have to keep 100, and maximum I think I don't know, some TBs, 100 TB, something like that. Okay, so for the demo I'm defining it 100 GB. So according to your user density you can set this. Okay, for example, let's say for per user if you are setting 30 GB, then for 100 user it will be like 3 TB. So this is how you calculate. Okay, so this is, since we set automatic performance tier, right? So automatically, as you can see, maximum IOPS it will provide 3100, burst IOPS 10,000. So the difference between maximum and burst means, let's say you reached 3100 IOPS. Okay, so there is no more IOPS left, right? So what Microsoft will do for another 60 minutes, Microsoft will provide additional 10,000 IOPS. Okay, so this is called burst IOPS. And throughput, this is the throughput, and this is the maximum capacity. Okay, protocol is SMB because we need a SMB share. So let's click on next, backup. So by default backup is enabled for this, and if you do not want backup you can exclude this also. So I don't need backup because this is the lab. Okay, so if you wanted to configure separately how to enable backup, etc., then you can check out my videos. It's available in detail. So let's click on review and let's click on create. So now we have created a file share. So as I mentioned, file share is created. So if I go back to my whiteboard, so what we have done, we created a storage account. Inside this storage account, we created a file share. This is a SMB file share. So now what we need to join this to Active Directory, right? Otherwise, how you will authenticate your users, etc. So you have an option here. You can join it to Active Directory. You can join it to Entra ID also, and options are available. So since most of the use cases these days with Active Directory, so we will do the demo. However, I have covered Entra ID also in my blogs or in my channel. Okay, you can check out that. So since this is more complicated, we will cover this. Okay, so and this is widely used as well. So we need to, the next step is we need to join this file share to our Active Directory. So if you go back to your file share, you will have something called directory service. See, currently it is saying as not configured, right? Even if you go to your Azure, Azure storage here, so it will say it is not configured Active Directory for you. Okay, so identity based access, it is not configured. Yeah, share default share level permission disabled. So this we'll talk about later. So the next step is we need to create a Active Directory connection to this particular uh, file share. So there are some prerequisites you need to have in order to join this particular storage account to the uh, Active Directory. The prerequisites are, first thing, you need to have a domain controller, and uh, whatever the users and computers you have in your domain controller, right? So it has to be synchronized to your Azure AD or Entra ID. Okay. So again, I'm not talking deep into this. Uh, you can check out my videos how to sync your users and computers to Microsoft Entra ID. So this is the one prerequisites you should have before you join your file share. Okay. So then what you need to have a user in your Entra ID which is having a permission to take the VM in domain. Okay. So what you can do, let's say you have a user over here in your domain controller, maybe give this user domain admin or enterprise admin credential, sorry, permissions. So make sure this user is synced to your Entra ID. Okay. So using this user, you need to log into one of the VM which is joined to domain. So basically, I will log into domain controller itself, and then you need to run some commands in PowerShell in order to join the file share to your domain. Okay. So the idea is have a user which is having a domain admin credential, and the user is synced to your Entra ID as well. So using this user, you need to log into the VM, any VM which is joined to domain. So from here, you're going to execute some commands in order to join the file share to your Active Directory. Okay, this is the exercise we are going to do. So do you want me to take can we take a 5 minutes break before we proceed further? Just give me a thumbs up. Yeah. So now it is 7:50 my time. So maybe your time is, I don't know. It's 1 hour 30 minutes, right? So we'll come at 7:55. Okay. So we'll just coordinate this. We'll be back at maybe after 5 minutes.
Sure. Okay.
Okay, I'm back. So just give the thumbs up so we can resume. Yeah. Okay, I'm getting a lot of thumbs up, so I think we are good to start now. So yeah, so the next step is we will configure identity-based access. So in your storage account, click on this particular not configured tab. So here it will take you to this particular page where you have your user profile. So again, here you have something called identity based access not configured. So if you select this, you'll have three options. So the meaning of this is you can either you can join your Azure files to the Active Directory domain service, and also or you can join it to the Entra, and there is something called Entra Kerberos. Okay, so in our case we will select the first option, which is Active Directory. Okay, so if you select this particular tab, which is setup, then it will ask you to configure four steps. First one is enable Active Directory. Second one is define the share level permission, and then file level permission, then mount file share using AD credential. Okay, so there is a article, for each of the steps, and also video from Microsoft, so you can see how to configure. Okay, so if you click on enable Active Directory authentication, the first step, so it will take you to this particular page. Yeah, this particular page. So here Microsoft has given step by step, step by step process in order to join your file share to the Active Directory. Okay, this is not simple because first you need to download and install Azure hybrid file modules, etc. Then you need to install the PowerShell module, etc. on your virtual machine where you are running these commands. Okay, if you are not installing it, then it will fail. Okay, so the first step is, as I mentioned, you need to have a user account. That user account should have domain join permissions, and also it is synced to Microsoft Entra ID. So first we will go to our domain controller. Yeah, so this is my domain controller. So I'm going to take a IDP to this domain controller, and we will verify the user. This is my domain controller. Okay, so so if I go to my users and computers in this particular domain controller or Active Directory, I have a user called FS user. So let's go to dsa.msc in order to explore the users and computers tab. So as you can see, we have a user, right, which is called FS user one. Okay, so this user I will use in order to join the computer, or sorry, in order to join the storage account to our domain. So if I go to the membership, I defined, I think, enterprise admin. So basically to avoid all the permission issues. So this will be the highest privileged user. But in a production infrastructure, don't do that. You just restrict the permission to take a domain, machine to domain. That's it. Do not enable the enterprise admin or domain admin, etc. For lab, it is okay. Then I have a group which is called VDA users. Okay, so this is the group where I will add my VDA user in order to access the VDA, etc. Okay, make sure these two groups, make sure this user and the groups these are synced to your Microsoft Entra ID. Okay, so in order to check that, you need to go to Microsoft Entra ID and you need to go to users. So here under users, as you can see, FS user one, which is called as on-premise synchronization is enabled. Yes, so this is synchronized from on-premise. So I'll not go deep into this particular option, portion, how to do the synchronization, etc., because it is a lengthiest. It is a very lengthy, and we cannot cover in 1 or 2 hours. Okay. So similarly, if you see, I have a groups here, which is video user group. So that is also synchronized to uh, my Entra ID. Okay. So basically, what we are doing, whatever the users and groups there in on-premise, we are trying to get it in the Azure AD also. So that is the process called Azure AD synchronization. Okay. So if I type video users, so you can see here, right? So the same user which got same group. Okay. So now the next step I mentioned, we need to log into the computer using the FS user, right? So let's try to log into the same domain controller using my FS user. Okay, because why I cannot use the other user which I logged in earlier, right? Which is Adam. So this add-on is not synchronized to my Azure AD. Okay, so that's why I cannot use this. So I have to use the user which is having synchronized with the Azure AD. Okay, even if you are in your infrastructure, if you have user with already synchronized to your Azure AD, you can use that. Okay, so let me log in. AVD bus. This is my domain. FS user one. Not sure it is user one or just a user. Yeah, it's user one. Let's enter the password. Okay, so now we have logged in using FS user one. So the next step is, here it is mentioned in the article, right? What it is mentioned. First thing, you need to download the Azure hybrid modules. So these are all partial modules. So it is available in GitHub. So make sure you download this. Okay. So in my case, I already downloaded. Yeah. So if you go to this particular VM DC, if you see here, so I already kept it under C temp. Okay, Azure hybrid modules. Yeah. So otherwise, you can download. Let's say if you do not have, you can download it from the GitHub. Okay, it is available in the GitHub. And the next step is, we need to run the commands, which is also mentioned over here. So this is the entire command they have mentioned. Okay. So first thing is, we need to run this particular command, which is set execution policy. This is to unrestrict your all partial command behavior. Okay. So I'm going to open Windows partial ISC. Okay. So let's run the first command, which is uh, set execution, or let's say A is to all. Then the next step is what they are saying. You need to go to copy to path.ps1. This is nothing but the file share module, which is we already copied under ctemp, right? So I'm going to ctemp. Okay, and now let's run this command. Run it once. Okay, so this is done. Now we need to import the Azure hybrid modules. So let's copy this. Okay, I'll run it. So sometimes you may get errors, so you can check in Copilot or in Google. That will recommend what are the modules missing. So you have to install it accordingly. Because for me, I already run this on this such things already in my computer earlier. So that's the reason I may not get any errors. So it not necessary that you will also run smoothly. So you'll also get some errors. So make sure that. So now that is part is completed. Now we need to connect to our Azure account. Okay. So let's click connect -az account. So it will open the Edge browser and it will ask you to select the login to your Microsoft Azure. Okay. So please make sure the account should have proper permissions on your Azure. Okay. So let's select this particular account, which is avd123 at mdkube@gmail.com. So if you go to my Entra ID, if you go to users, right? If you see this particular user avd123, right? So you may have a question now. The domain name of this is onemicrosoft.com and my other user is avdbus.site. The difference is this is a hybrid user, which is synchronized from on-premise, right? That's why I have this. This user I directly created in the Microsoft Entra, which is a cloud user. Okay, any cloud user, it will have a name on Microsoft.com. Again, it's a huge topic. I'm not getting to, don't want to get into this right now. You can check out again the videos available in internet. Okay, so just for simplicity, I'm using this. So even you can use this, but in order to use this, you need to define proper permission for this user in Azure. Okay. So since I did not provide any permissions with respect to my Azure subscription to this user, that's why I'm not using it. If I have a proper permission, I can use this also. So if you see here, I have a permission called global admin. Okay, global admin is the highest privileged role in Microsoft Azure. Okay, it is not recommended to give this permission in production infrastructure. However, in lab, that's okay. So I have global admin for this particular user AVD123. So I'm going to use this in order to authenticate to my Azure AD in the virtual machine over here. Okay, so it's not necessary you need to use different accounts. You can use same account as far as you're having a permission. So just for simplicity, I'll use this. Okay, so now it will validate. I need to enter the password now. So now authentication is completed. Okay, so once the authentication is completed, automatically it will display my subscription, right? So now this part is completed, and now let's go to the article and we'll see what is the next part. So now see, now we are defining variables, right? Subscription. What is our subscription? What is the resource group? What is the storage account name? What is the SAM account name? So what is the domain type? So these are the things you can define it in a variable, and then you can run the command to add the VM in domain. See, this is the command. So what I did, I am not defining any variables here. I will define manually. So if I go to my notepad, so you can see, right, we have a command called join AZ storage account hyphen resource group. What is a resource group? So in our case, the resource group is demo lab, right? Let's copy this and update here. Okay. Storage account name. What is the storage account name? The storage account name is demo storage FSL. So please note, this is not a file share name. Okay. This is a storage account name. Okay. I updated. So again, the SAMA account name This is nothing but the computer object name which you wanted to create for this storage account in your Active Directory. So I'll keep it same. I don't want to create a separate name for that. And then we have a computer object tab over here, which is a, see, this is a domain account type. What type of account you want to create? So I wanted to create a computer account. So this is as it is. There is no change over here. Then OU path. So what is the OU path? So I have created a OU called server. So if you go to my Active Directory here, I have a server, right? So I wanted to keep the computer storage account, a computer object under this, right? So I will keep it as it is. Now you need to copy this and you need to run this. If everything is fine, then you need to create a computer object and you are good to go. Let's see. Okay, it is running. Let's see, it is creating successfully. If it is not creating successfully, then we need to troubleshoot and it's very hard. So parallelly, you can go back to your Active Directory and you can monitor whether it is creating any computer object over here. Yeah, perfect. See, it is created a computer object. So now our storage account is part of our Active Directory. So see, this also gave the output. So if you go back to your storage account and if you refresh, it should be saying that Active Directory is enabled. So it is still saying not configured. Maybe it requires some refresh. Yeah, perfect. Identity based access, which is configured. So if you select this, again, it will take you here. And if you select configured, so as you can see, so this is now grayed out because this is already configured. Okay. So now the next step is we need to define the permissions. So let's say this is your file share, right? So this file share have some path, isn't it? So this is the URL. So let's copy this and let's go back to our domain controller and let's enter the path. So we need to remove this HTTP. Instead of, we will put / and okay. So let's click on OK. So it is saying that Windows cannot access this because you do not have permissions. So the next step is we need to define the permissions. So for that, I'll go to my access control over here in my storage account. Please note, you can do this on storage account level, also on the file share level, but I will do it in the storage account level. Okay. So let's click on add role assignment. We have like 30 minutes left, I believe. So we'll try to complete. Guys, give a thumbs up if you are following properly so that I'll get to know it's easy to follow for you guys. Okay, fine. Yeah, so now we need to define the permissions. So as I mentioned that for the owner or for the administrator, we need to provide storage file data share contributor. This is the exam and interview, very important questions when it comes to profile solution. So interviewer or even in your AC40, this will be asked. Okay. So for the administrator, you need to give this elevated contributor so that he can define permissions, modify permissions, all those stuffs they can do, right? So members, so to whom to give this permission? So in my case, I have an administrator, which is FS user. He is the administrator for everything, right? So I'll select him. Okay, so let's click on next and let's click on review and design. So now we have provided the admin permissions. So the next is the user permission, right? So let's click add role assignment and SMB. Now for the user, we need to select storage file data SMB contributor. So this is also an AZ140 question, and also it will be asked in interview as well. Members. As you remember, I have a group, right? VDA group. So I'm going to define this to the VDA user group because they need permission to create the profiles. So that's the reason we are defining it. So let's click on review and let's click on assign. So permission is completed now. Okay. So now let's go back and let's try to access. Sometimes this may take some time to reflect, but sometimes it will be immediately applied. So as you can see, it is still taking some time. So let's wait for some time. No, this is a different share. Okay, I think there is one more settings. Earlier it was not there. So let's go to identity. Okay, so here as you can see, default share level permissions you can write. So as of now, it is by default disable permission and no access allowed to file share. This particular option was not there earlier. So now Microsoft has introduced. So we need to select enable permission for all authenticated users. Technically, this is not required as per my knowledge because you're already defining the permission on the main storage account. Let's wait for a couple of minutes. If it is not happening, then we'll see defining the permission over there. Okay, just to save the time, I will enable the permission now. So I'm going to define the same permission, which is
Mohammed, I think you can click on save. Not click on save button.
no. In order to click save, we need to define this. Okay, I'm going to define elevated permissions. Sorry, should be contributor for all the say permission for all authenticated users and groups, right? So here we need to define storage file data as an share contributor. So the same one which you defined earlier, right, for the all user. So we need to be added here also. Okay. So once we click on save, now this will be immediately accessible. So let's go and see. Still it is taking time, so let's give it some time. Okay, I don't want to waste the time over here. So the thing is, we already created a file share, right? I kept it ready with all the settings. Okay, so this may take some time to reflect the changes which we have done. So in order to continue the lab, I will use the another file share, okay, which is FS share 01. If the newly created one is not accessible, still it is throwing some permissions error. Okay, it may take some time for the synchronization of permissions. It's weird. It's taking this much time. I'll just validate the permissions which I provided in the parent level. It is perfect. So it is accessible. Even I don't think so. As I told you, this permission is required because you're defining at the storage account level, right? So one I later provided. Let me go back to this. So this is not required, in fact, because you're already defining at the storage account level. So it will inherit here as well. So let's click on save and let's try to access once again and we'll see. It is also mentioned, see, once you have Active Directory on your account, you must configure shared level permission in order to get the file share access. There are two ways you can assign permission. You can assign them to all authenticated identities as a default share permissions below. You can also assign them on a specific Microsoft Entra user group from the IAM blade. So what we have done, we defined on the IAM blade. So that is the recommended one, instead of defining it here. But again, it depends on your use cases. So let's stick to our initial assignment. So we are not defining anything here. We are defining on the IAM level. So if I go back to my storage account and if I access, it has to be allowed. Yeah. So now we have defined the shared level permission. Now coming into the next chapter, coming into the next one, which is we need to enable NTFS permissions, right? So let's click on properties and let's click on security and let's click on edit, click on add. Here we need to define domain user. So instead of this, we'll open advanced tab and we will click on add, select principal domain user, check names, click OK, and we need to have modify. Let's check what is the permission we need, right? For domain user, this folder only. Okay, so let's define this folder only. Okay, so let's click OK and apply. Yes. Okay. Now for the creator user, for the creator owner, we need to define modify on subfolders and files. So we have creator. Let's click on edit and you can give full control also. There is no harm. So let's go as per the article, because if you check Citrix article, I think they have full control. It's one and the same almost. So subfolder and files. Okay, click OK, apply. Okay. So now we all good with respect to profile permissions. Okay, let's verify this. So if you have some users, administrator users or groups, you can add here and you can give full permissions. Okay, and you can remove the unnecessary things from here. So that's again, I'm not going to cover here. So this is as per your security guidelines if you don't want to keep any other users in the file share. But be careful, there are some system generated users, so do not remove it, otherwise you will run into issues. So the next part is we are going to create a group policy, right, for the FSLogix in order to apply on my VDA. So I'll go to my dsa.msc. I'll go to my OUs. So here I have my domain and I have my objects, all those things. So let's create a OU called VDI or AVD. Click OK. So now we are going to create a GPO and attach the GPO to this particular OU. So now, as you remember, I already created a VDA, right? So I'll move this VDA under AVD so that this particular VDA will have will apply the policy, will get the policy related to FSLogix. Okay. So now, before we create FSLogix or anything, first we need to download something called FSLogix ADM and ADML and ADMX files. Okay. Basically, it will be there here. So in this, okay, let's extract the folder. This is the setup you download. Okay. So if you go to this ADMX and UDL, so these two things we need to add under system root, I believe. Something called policy definition, right? So ADMX, we have to paste it here. ADMX copy. If you are doing Intune, it is not required. Okay. So this is only if you are doing via GPU. So then we need to go to en-us. So here you need to copy ADML. Yeah. Continue. Okay. Now the policy part is done. Copying the templates. So let's close everything. Let's open group policy here. Group policy management. Go to your domain, expand this and go to AVD, create a GPO. Okay. And name it as FSLogix. Click OK. Now under FSLogix, right click and edit this GPO. I will go with the minimal setting, not to confuse you guys. Okay. So you can check out my Udemy or YouTube or my blogs for the advanced configurations. It's up to you. So under computer policies, you need to go to administrative templates. So here you will find FSLogix. So if you are not importing that ADML and ADMX, you will not see these particular options. Okay. So let's click on profile container. And here you need to do the settings. Okay. So the first setting, which is I'm trying to find profile. Enable. Okay. So this is very important. This will enable the profile setting. Click OK. And then the next is the path, right? So you need to give the VHD location. So where is the location? So our location is this one, right? Copy. It's the same how you do it for UPM. So let's click on like OK. So these two settings is enough to get started with the FSLogix. However, if you need to fine tune, you can do many things. Let's say you can click on delete local profile when VHD should be applied. Okay, this will avoid any profile related issues. So I recommend you add this. Okay, so then we need to enable something called user reboot on user log off. This is only for the single session. Okay, so if you are using multi-session, don't use this. I don't think so it will work also for multi-session. So I think it will work for multi-session, but I do not use this. Okay, so this is only for single session. This will greatly help you to clear any the undetached VDAs, etc. So let's enable this since this is a lab. So reboot on any log off or reboot on FSLogix log off. This is very important. This means only VDA user will be, one user, when the VDA user log off, the VM will get rebooted. However, this is any user. For example, you are doing a RDP, right? When you log off, it will reboot. So you have to be careful. Okay. So I'll make sure only VDA user gets that. Apart from that, the VHD type, this is important. By default, it will create VHD, I believe. So VHDX is always better. So make sure you create that. These are all related to naming pattern, etc. Again, I have some blogs related to this. You can follow. I'm not going to do that now. So apart from that, if I wanted to suggest some setting which is size, by default it will be with the 30 GB. So if you wanted to change it to some other lower or higher number, you can do this here. So I always recommend keep it 30 GB. So unless and until you know your users. Okay, so I'll keep it as it is. I'm not going to change it. Okay, so rest I don't think. Yeah, prevent login with temp profile. This is important. So this will again help you to reduce your help desk calls. So otherwise user will report in the morning, I'm logged into VDA, but I'm not getting my data because of temporary profile. So let if the profile is having any issues, just prevent them from logging in, then you can troubleshoot it so that it will not create junk things in your storage. Prevent with failure, this is also you can do it. Okay, if you, let's say there is some issue on attaching container, etc., then prevent from login instead of getting the temporary profile. Again, this is my recommendation. Okay, I'm not telling every organization should use this. It's again depends on how you run your organization. For example, let's say the impact is, if I prevent login with the temp profile, user will not log into VDA at all. So this may be an issue in some company, because in some company, let's say they are fine in using temp profile. In that sense, you can disable it. But let's say no, you don't want to get into temp profile at all, then this is recommended. So you need to assess your infrastructure. Okay, so Outlook cached mode, so you can enable cached mode over here. So if you wanted to have all the caching on your VHT, so these are a few settings which I recommend. So again, it's based on your based on the infrastructure. It's not a baseline, as I mentioned. Okay, cloud cache, I'm not going to discuss about. This is basically for the disaster recovery purpose, and we'll discuss this in some other day, or you can check my videos as well. Okay, so overall this is related to profile container. Let's say if you wanted to use office container, the same setting will go. So you need to enable this and give the path for office container, etc. So in this in this demo, I'm not going to talk about ODFC or office container, because let everything sits on profile container since it's a demo. But in a practical or in a production infrastructure, so you have to take a decision. If you wanted to segregate all the teams related cache things, then you need to define ODFC container, so that that container will be only dedicated to the office related things. Okay, related to logging, so there are some options here you can enable specifically with respect to logging. So you can enable this. Okay, So since this is a demo, I'm not going much deeper into this. So as a simple setup, so you create a GPO and just enable these settings. Okay. So now our GPO is ready. Now what we are going to do, we have our VDA, right? Which is FS-VDA AVD-0. So let's take a remote and we'll check whether FSLogix agent is there. So if it is not there, we are going to install it. Okay. I created this VDA from the Azure Marketplace. I think that image should have FSLogix by default, as you all aware, right? So my default, Microsoft will have image. They have separate image, some with the window, or some with FSLogix, some with the Office apps, etc. Okay. So I believe I created the one with the FSLogix as well as Office apps. So let me verify that first. I will log in using local account to this particular AVD. Okay, this is my AVD VM, which I have taken using IDP. So let's verify. Yeah, FSLogix is already part of this. So if you are creating a new image without anything, so it is just a simple installation. Click next, 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 finish. That's it. Okay. So let's do GP update and then reboot, and then we will log in and we'll make sure FSLogix profile is created. So before that, I wanted to go to my host pool. I'll go to my Azure Virtual Desktop host pool and I will define the users because I did not define it over here, I believe. So let's go to manage application groups. So as I meant, so as you know, there is no user agent. So let me add the VDA users. So now I added VDA users, but if you see VDA users, there is no users under VDA users, by the way. So we need to create some users and then we need to sync it to Microsoft Entra ID. So if I go to my users, right? If I go to my groups, as you can see, member, nobody, right? So let's create a user, AVD1, AVD1. Cancelled. Okay, now we created a user, right? If I go back to my Microsoft Entra ID, as you can see, here user is not there, right? So if I type AVD1, See, it is not there. So it is not synchronized yet. Okay. So there is a command. So you can run in order to synchronize that quickly. So I'm going to open PowerShell. So okay, this is the command. Let's go back and let's open, click here and click on sync. So this will immediately sync the user. Otherwise, it will run on 30 minutes, I believe. Okay. So we have to wait for 30 minutes. So if I go back and if I refresh now, will also run full sync. Yeah, AVD1, as you can see, it is synchronized now, right? So similarly, if you go to the group, it should have the membership because we added, oh, sorry, we did not add, right? We just created a group. Sorry, we just created a account. So let me add this AVD1. We'll run the same command once again in order to do the synchronization. So success. Let's go to my groups. VDA group members. Okay, it will take time, little time to add. Okay, so as you know, let's open an incognito window and let's open Azure VDA URL. Okay, which is https windows dot cloud dot microsoft. Okay, I wanted to disable MFA for this user because again MFA enrollment and all, it will take time. So what I will do, I will go to my users and I will remove the MFA for user MFA. AVD. I think it is already disabled, I believe. That's good. Okay, let's check the group membership because without group membership, user will not get the VDI. I think we are almost hitting the time, so it's just like we need 6. Yeah, perfect. We have the group membership as well. So now let's log in using this VDI. So before that, I do, you know, right? We have already run the group policy update here. Okay. So it is always better you restart it I'm restarting. At the same time, I will copy this user AVD bus and let's try to log in. Okay, cool. So now, as you can see, we have the VDA, which is we just created it. Sorry, we just rebooted it belongs to that host pool. So before we click this, we have restarted, right? We need to make sure the VDA is in registered state. So once it is in registered state, then we will log in and we'll make sure that it is creating profile if everything is fine. Otherwise, we need to do the troubleshooting. Okay. So yeah, it is in running state and we are good to go. So let's click on this. So now the VDA is getting connected. I did not enable single sign-on. That's fine. We can do this as well. So now please wait the FSLogix app service. So I think it is getting kicked in. So if you go to your storage account at the meantime, and let's see it is creating a profile here. Okay. This is how you will validate. Perfect. As you can see, AVD1. So this is your VHT, which is mounted to your VM. So now this is your profile, which is sorry. Now this is your VDA with profile configuration is completed. So see, earlier there is an option. If you go to C Windows or C program files, there is something called FSLogix tray. I don't know why Microsoft has removed that. It was a very good tool in order to validate whether your profile is active or not. But I don't know, due to some reason they removed it. Okay. So now all you can do is you can go to the event viewer. So you can go to event viewer applications, I think. Okay, let it load. Microsoft, FSLogix, apps, operations, right? So here you can check everything with respect to your FSLogix. Okay. So this is very important when it comes to troubleshooting. Okay. So it will tell what went wrong and if any issues it will display over here. So if I scroll down, right, so it will give you the username AVD1, error is 0, profile status 100 means success. Okay. So if some user is saying that I don't have my data, so the first place you need to come here and you need to see the the event logs. So, okay. So if let's say if some reason is profile is not mounting, so you can identify from here. Okay. Parallelly, as I told you, it will mount each time, right? So in order to check the mounting, I'm not sure whether here we have disk management. It will throw error, yeah, as I expected. Don't know why I'm not able to type here. Anyways, what I wanted to show you that the mounting part, right? So let's do one thing. I will from my domain controller. See, this is the beautiful part. Okay. So sometimes user will call and they will tell they are not getting that data. So it may be because your previous session is still not logged off properly. So in order to identify on which VM that disk is mounted, so you can get it from this particular file, which is metadata file. So if you drag to notepad, see it is mounted to AVD0. So you can log into this AVD0 and then you can unmount manually. So this is the most common issue in VDI, that after the log off, the disk will not be get detached from the VDI. Okay. So in Azure portal, you will not see, but in your storage, it will be there, right? So let's go here, and I wanted to show the mounting part. So we almost covered everything. Okay, I think why this is happened because we missed one part. I think we forgot to exclude the admin from getting the VHD. Sorry, getting the FSLogix profile. Okay, so let's do one thing. Okay, so if I go to the disk management, this is what I was saying. See, profile is got attached here. So this is how it will attach. Same like how C drive will attach from the SAN, right? From the storage, it will attach your profile. Okay. So the moment user logs off, right, it should also remove this profile. Okay. And one more thing which I here again, if you go to the local users and groups, you'll have something called FSLogix profile exclude, right? So by default, as you can see, uh, nothing is there. So always it's recommended to exclude. This is exclude. Yeah, exclude your local administrator. Okay. Again, this is I'm running from the user side, right? That's why it will ask you the credential, etc. But you got the idea, right? Always make sure to exclude the user, which is a admin user. Otherwise, it is very difficult to troubleshoot because it will try to create FSLogix profile for all the user, irrespective of any user. Okay, so make sure that part. That is one thing I missed in the initial configuration. So apart from this, there is nothing else. So this is how you can configure FSLogix and you can deliver end user experience. The moment you log off here, as you can see, I configured one policy that reboot after log off, right? So this will reboot the VDA. So your FSLogix profile will get detached from the storage. If you go to your storage, as you can see here, so it will detach because it is still doing the reboot. Sorry, now it is got detached. See that metadata file went. So if metadata file is there even after log off, then you may have some issues. Okay, so always make sure that metadata file should be deleted after you log off. So if it is not deleted, it means that your VHD is still mounted to your previous session host, and when you try to log in for the next time, you will have a temporary profile, etc. So also that is one part. And another part, in your storage account, if you go to your storage account, there is something called file handler. Okay, so that also you need to release it whenever a user report any issues after he's getting a temporary profile, etc. So let's say this is your storage account, and if you go inside your store file share, and if you go to the file share, so this is your file share, right? So we have something called browse here. Okay, so under this you will have your profile. So here, if you right click this, right, you will have something called list handles and leases. Okay, so after user log off, it should be zero, like it should be no result. Okay, there should not be any open handlers. Let's say if the user is logged off and still he's having some handles, that will create for issue with the temporary profiles. So this is one more step you will troubleshoot. You will delete the handles. Okay, the ideal behavior, it should technically it should go immediately after the log off, but due to some other processes, keeping the profile, etc., there are some issues. There are some sometimes you may face issue because of the handler. So you need to come here and you need to clear. So these are the two major troubleshooting tips from my side. And one more thing is, always make sure you reboot your VDA daily. Maybe you put a scheduled task at night, 2 a.m., 3 a.m., depends on your user working time. So always make sure to do the daily reboot. So this will reduce your FSLogix issues, let's say more than 80%. So these are the top 3 tips from my side. So when you're doing the troubleshooting, first make sure to check the event logs. Many of the people will not check the event logs. The event logs will give you 99% what is the issue, and then based on that you can do the troubleshooting. So yeah, that's it, guys. So we are completed the FSLogix training, quick training, I can say. So I have covered this in detail in my blogs, in my videos, in my Udemy's. So you can go and check out if you wanted to deep dive into core FSLogix architecture or modules. So if you have any doubts, as I mentioned, you can put it over here. So let me see, what is there any doubt? Okay, you might also need, okay, this is related to FS and NTFS, which already I have taken care earlier. How to take data or restore data in FSLogix? We need to do the profile reset. What about FX? FSLogix tray is no more available. I don't know why Microsoft has removed. So the data restore and data, you need to configure Azure backup, which I have created a blog here. If you go to my blog, FSLogix backup, PTIS. Yeah, this is my blog. So here I mentioned step-by-step process, how you can take a backup, and how you can restore. Okay, so one important point I missed. So let's say if you wanted to do a restore, sorry, if you wanted to do any profile reset, so it's very simple. I don't want to, because you guys already aware. So just rename this. So next time when the user logs in, he will get a new profile. Okay, so make sure you take a backup before you do any kind of reset, etc. Okay, because you may lose important data. So that's the reason. So I think I covered the basic and important topics here. So does FSLogix profile folder require? Does FSLogix profile folder require full permission? If required, anyhow, we can set up auto full permission on profile folder if you can help. See, permission is, I already told, right? So you need to define the permission as per Microsoft article. Okay. So you need to follow these creator, owner, and domain user. This is enough. Okay. So nothing else is required. I hope you guys enjoyed the session, and I hope it is useful. So thank you all, and thank you Satya Selva for arranging this. So we will see you maybe in future sessions with more topics. Okay. If you have any feedbacks, comments, you can turn on the mic and yeah, you can tell. Satya, over to you. Or Silva, over to you.
Yeah. Thanks, Subham. I was waiting anyone talks. Okay. So it's a wonderful and nice session. Thanks for your time spending on it. Yeah, FSLogix is always sometime it's unexpected, but if we are not following the rules and permission, so that's a takeaway. But that interesting part was the troubleshooting step. So whoever working in real time, it's really benefit addition to learning. Thanks for that.
Thank you, Silva. Thank you once again.
Thanks, Mahatma. It's a very nice session.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I'm stopping the recording and thanks everyone.
Yeah, Silva, I need the recording. Okay, that I'll check with your
Sure.
later. Okay.